What if I told you that everyone chasing status was actually getting poorer? And the ones who said nothing, the quiet ones, were building something invisible. You know the type. New car every 2 years. Designer shoes. A vacation post every single month. It all looked like winning. But there was one person who didn't play that game. He drove the same car for 9 years. And nobody noticed him. At first. Here's the part that breaks people's brains. Most of the visibly wealthy are actually drowning in debt. The image and the bank account rarely match. So while his friends were buying the appearance of success, he was buying something else entirely. Something you can't post a photo of. They called him cheap, boring, even a little pathetic, behind his back. He heard it. And he let them keep talking. Because he already knew something they didn't. Something about how wealth actually works when nobody's watching. What does it actually cost to look rich every single day for 10 years straight? The number will shock you. And what does it cost to look like nothing's changed, while everything underneath quietly multiplies? That's the real question tonight. This is the story of a man who chose silence over status. And what it actually built behind closed doors. Stay with me. It didn't start easy. In his 20s, he made the same paycheck as everyone else. The difference was what he did with it. Every weekend, there was a reason to spend. A birthday dinner. A new phone. A friend's engagement party that needed the right outfit. He felt it too, that pull. The fear of looking poor in front of people who weren't actually rich either. At one dinner, a friend ordered the most expensive bottle on the menu. Just to be seen doing it. He ordered water. Someone laughed. Quietly. Called him careful, like it was an insult. He smiled and said nothing back. There were nights he sat alone, scrolling through everyone else's vacations, wondering if he was the one getting it wrong. Was he being smart? Or was he just missing out on his own life? While everyone else actually lived theirs. His own family asked when he'd get a better car. A nicer apartment. Something to show for all that hard work. He never told them about the numbers. The ones quietly growing, in an account nobody else could see. Because showing people the truth would have meant explaining something most people don't actually want to hear. Meanwhile, his friends kept climbing. New titles. New leases. New watches that cost more than his rent. And every single time, that small voice asked him, "Are you sure this is working? Are you sure you're not just falling behind?" One friend financed a car he couldn't afford, just to park it outside a party. The payment alone was brutal. He drove past that same party, in his old sedan, and felt something he didn't expect. Not envy. Relief. Because behind closed doors, that friend was juggling 3 credit cards. Just to keep the image alive. He skipped trips. Skipped upgrades. Skipped the version of himself that looked successful, for the version that actually was. People assumed he was struggling. Nobody assumed he was choosing it. That misunderstanding followed him for years. But something was happening underneath all that silence. Something none of them could see yet. A number was growing. Slowly. Quietly. The way real things grow, when nobody's clapping for them. And one day, that number would be impossible to ignore. But first, you need to understand the lie everyone believed. Here's the lie almost everyone believes. That if it looks expensive, the person must be doing well. That's it. That's the whole trick. We've been trained to read appearance as proof. The car. The watch. The vacation photo. All of it treated as evidence. But appearance isn't evidence. It's a receipt. And receipts don't tell you what someone actually owns. Turns out, most people who look rich are financing the entire performance. Monthly payments dressed up as success. That friend with the new car. The one who mocked him at dinner. He was 3 months behind on payments. Another friend, the one with designer everything, had almost nothing saved. Not for emergencies. Not for retirement. Nothing. Meanwhile, the man everyone called cheap had quietly built more net worth than almost everyone at that table. The lie isn't just that looking rich means being rich. The lie is that status is the goal at all. Status is rented. Every single month. Wealth is owned. Forever. Those are not the same thing, no matter how similar they look. We're taught to compete on what's visible. But the actual game, the one that determines your future, happens somewhere nobody's looking. He understood this early. Not because he was smarter. Because he was willing to be misunderstood, for a few years. Every dollar spent proving you've arrived is a dollar that can't compound. Can't grow. Can't ever work for you again. That's the part nobody explains. Money spent on image dies the moment it's spent. Money invested keeps multiplying quietly for decades. A car payment of $600 a month, invested instead for 30 years, becomes well over $1 million. So every leased car, every flashy dinner, wasn't just a purchase. It was a future quietly traded away. This is why so many people who look successful at 40 are still broke at 60. The math never changed. They just ignored it. He wasn't smarter than them. He just refused to trade his future for someone else's approval. And once you see this lie clearly, once you really see it, you can't unsee it. You start asking different questions. So here's the real question. Would you rather look wealthy for 10 years? Or actually be wealthy for the rest of your life? Choose option 1, looking rich now. Or option 2, being rich later quietly. Comment your choice below. Let's see which one wins. Now let's get into exactly what he did. Because this wasn't luck. It was a quiet, repeatable system. Step by step. Step 1. He paid himself first. Before rent. Before bills. Before anything else, a fixed percentage moved into investments automatically. Not when he felt like it. Not whatever was left over. First. Automatically. Before he could even think about spending it. Step 2. He picked boring investments. Low-cost index funds. Nothing flashy. Nothing that made for an exciting conversation at dinner. Boring doesn't go viral. But boring, held for 20 years, quietly outperforms almost everything people brag about online. Step 3. He froze his lifestyle every time his income grew. A raise meant more investing. Not a bigger apartment. Most people increase spending the moment they earn more. He did the opposite. He kept his life exactly the same. Step 4. He tracked his net worth, not his image. One number, checked monthly. Quietly climbing, completely private. He never posted it. Never mentioned it. Because the moment you announce wealth, you invite pressure to perform it. Step 5. He built more than one income stream. A side skill. Small investments. Anything that didn't depend on one paycheck. Because one income source is fragile. Lose that job, lose everything. He refused to be that exposed ever again. Step 6. He avoided debt for anything that didn't grow in value. No financed watches. No financed vacations. Ever. Debt for a home or an education can build a future. Debt for a dinner photo just builds regret. Step 7. He gave himself one rule. Spend on what you remember in 10 years. Skip what you'll forget in 10 days. That single filter quietly killed almost every impulse purchase before it ever happened. Step 8. He surrounded himself, slowly, with people who valued substance over image. The mockery faded. The right people stayed. He stopped explaining himself. Stopped defending his choices. Silence, it turns out, is also a strategy. Step 9. He gave it time. Real time. Because wealth built quietly takes years to even become visible. The first 5 years look like nothing. The next 5 look like progress. The years after that look unbelievable. He followed every one of these steps for almost a decade. And then something happened that even he didn't expect. By year 3, his account had grown past what most people his age had saved. Nobody at the dinner table knew. But something had changed in him. The mockery stopped landing. He wasn't performing for them anymore. He never really had to. By year 5, his investments were earning more in a single month than his first job ever paid him in 3. That number did something to him. It wasn't pride. It was quiet. A kind of calm he hadn't felt before. He realized he hadn't checked a price tag in months. Not because he was wealthy enough to ignore it. Because he'd already decided. He realized he hadn't checked a price tag in months. Not because he was wealthy enough to ignore it. Because he'd already decided. The breakthrough wasn't the money. It was the moment status stopped having power over him at all. Around year 7, one friend's car got repossessed. Another quietly asked to borrow money. The image had finally run out of road. He didn't say "I told you so." He just helped where he could and never mentioned the math. By year 9, his net worth crossed 7 figures. Quietly. While still driving that same old, paid-off car. He looked the same. Talked the same. Nothing on the outside had changed. Everything underneath completely had. He used to wonder if he was wrong for choosing silence. Now he understood. Silence was never the absence of progress. It was the engine. He started to notice it everywhere. The truly wealthy people he met were almost always the quietest in the room. The loudest spenders were almost always trying to convince someone, maybe even themselves, that they'd already made it. He never needed to convince anyone. The number didn't lie. And it never needed an audience to be real. He realized he could walk away from any job, any room, any relationship that didn't respect his time. That's what the silence had bought him. Every year people called him cheap was a year he was actually buying his freedom on a payment plan nobody else could see. It cost him approval. Comfort. The easy applause that comes from looking like you've made it. It bought him something heavier than applause. It bought him the ability to sleep, completely unbothered by a single emergency, a single bad month, a single bad year. And that, more than any number, is what nobody tells you about silent wealth. It changes what you're actually afraid of. But here's the warning. This story doesn't end just because the money showed up. The pressure to perform never actually leaves. Even now, with everything he's built, there are moments he's tempted to finally show it. Buy the car. Prove the doubters wrong. He still says no. Not because he can't afford it now. Because the habit of restraint is what got him here in the first place. He still says no. Not because he can't afford it now. Because the habit of restraint is what got him here in the first place. Wealth built in silence can be lost just as quietly the moment status starts to matter again. So he kept the same rule from year 1. Spend on what lasts. Skip what fades. No matter how big the number gets. Today, he's not richer looking. He's just free. Free from debt, free from approval, free from the need to prove anything to anyone. Status fades the moment the next trend arrives. Wealth, built quietly, outlasts every single trend that ever existed. Everyone around him chased the appearance of winning. He built the actual thing. Nobody clapped. Nobody needed to. So here's the last question. Are you chasing how it looks? Or are you building what lasts? Comment option 1 or option 2 right now. And choose wisely.